Hey, welcome back to the How to Podcast series. It's Dave with you. I hope you're doing well. Thanks for pressing play. If it's your first time here, so glad you're here. Welcome to the show. This is a podcast to help you on your journey to become a podcaster. And we're all about action on the show. You can listen to 1,000 podcasts about podcasting. You can go to podcast conferences. You can buy books. Heck, you can even hire somebody, give them $2,000, and they'll brand you an expert in podcasting. You don't even need to have a podcast. So there's a lot of stuff going on in the space. We're all about action here. And if you are just ingesting information, then great. I love that you're hungry to know more about podcasting. But I'm encouraging you that if you haven't even hit record yet, that you might be getting a little bit too much information. And in this thirst for knowledge, I want you to get thirsty for action. So we're action focused here, and we want you maybe even to shut this podcast episode off and go hit record on a podcast and go start. And if you need any help with that, howtopodcast.ca, I'd love to talk to you and encourage you to get beyond learning about podcasting and get into doing your podcast. That's my challenge for you. You might want to hit stop on this and come back later. But if you're a podcaster and you're active and you're doing your thing, stick around. We're going to talk about something that's really going on in the podcasting space right now. You may have heard little grumblings about this. You might have caught some news here and there and some opinions around this topic. But the idea about what is and what isn't a podcast, why does this even matter, and to whom does it matter? We're going to talk about this here on the podcast. I'm glad you're here. It's going to be kind of an opinion piece today from your friend here, Dave, but I hope in this conversation that you and I are going to have together that you'll have some clarity around what you see as the definition of a podcast and how this could impact your show and your relationship with your audience. You're my friends, and I want to spend time with you, and I'm glad you're here. Welcome to the show. In the podcasts about podcasting space, and I listen to, I think, every show there is about podcasts about podcasting. Some I love, some I tolerate. I hope that this show is not one of your tolerate podcasts about podcasting. I hope you love it, because I love doing this, and I love spending time with you. But here's something that I've been kind of wrestling with as somebody who talks about podcasting. I help podcasters. I run a meetup for podcasters. I coach podcasters. I edit for podcasters. I love you as a podcaster. Yeah, it's warm and gushy day. Dave's feeling warm and gushy. I love everything about podcasting. It has opened up so many doors for me. And the fact that I have time with you is a great example of that. So how would we have ever met? Otherwise, probably never. And just having you in my community and listening to the show and interacting with me through SpeakPipe and all that great stuff, it's awesome to know that you're there and you're getting value from the show. It makes my heart happy. It does a little dance. Just a little. I'm not a good dancer, but my heart is really good at dancing because of you. So thanks. I'm just pulling in all this current conversation in the podcast space around this topic of what is a podcast. And you're like, well, it's obvious. It's what you're doing right now, Dave. This is a podcast. Okay, yeah. But the definition of a podcast is going through some growing pains a little bit. There's new players coming in. There's new people coming up and stepping up and saying, well, we need to clarify what exactly is a podcast, because there's a lot of people who are basing decisions on the answer to the question, what is a podcast? Decisions that cost like advertisers money, decisions that talk about measurement and how many people are listening to podcasts globally. So in that right there, we need to know, like, what are we counting? And in that, what counts as a podcast for the people counting the number of people globally who interact with a podcast? What counts and what doesn't count? What is a podcast? What isn't a podcast? So we have to kind of understand. So let's compare it to a car. So what is a car? Well, a car used to be a car, and a van was a van, and a pickup truck was a pickup truck. A transport, that never really was considered to be a car. But now people would say, I'm going to jump in my car and go get groceries. And they walk out to their Ford F-150. Well, that's a pickup truck. And then people say, well, I'm going to go grab the kids at soccer. There's like 5 of them. I'm going to go grab the car. And they walk out to their minivan. Well, that's a van, technically. People will say, well, I'm going to grab my SUV and I'm going to go head up to the cottage. It's my car. Well, it's an SUV, technically. It's not really a car. A car is a car. So you see right there, when we say, I have 3 cars. Well, technically I have a car, which could be a traditional car, and I have an SUV and I have a pickup truck. So do you have 3 cars? Or do you have a car, an SUV, and a pickup truck? Like, you're like, Dave, this is like all semantics. You're really just a little bit on the nose here, Dave. My point is, when everything becomes one thing, it's very difficult to determine what you're really looking for. So if I walk onto a car lot, car lot, and I want to go buy a new car, the salesperson's going to come out all happy because they're going to make a lot of cash from Dave today. And they're going to say, hey, welcome to Dave's house of cars and things. Glad to have you here. What are you looking for? Well, I'm looking for a new car. Well, there you go. Okay, so I'm going to take you over to the cars. No. I want a car that's, I could put like building supplies in the back. Like a station wagon car? No, a truck. You want a truck? Oh, okay, so I'll take you over to the truck section. Do you see what I mean? And as we talk about podcasting, when somebody says, I have a podcast, first of all, I do, again, my heart gets all happy again because you and I are friends. And when I hear, well, I have a podcast, I'm like, sweet. I love listening to a podcast because I work nights and I'm always looking for a show. I want to listen to your show, by the way. Let me know, howtopodcast.ca. I love listening to shows because I get to hear your voice and interact with you, but I'm at work. And if my boss catches me standing there staring at my phone in my hand, I'll probably get fired. So I don't want that to happen because I have bills. So I'm going to put you in my pocket and I'm just going to press play and I'm going to listen to every episode of your show. So for me at work, when I'm listening at work, I am listening. Now, I might do something different on my days off or when I'm at home, but I can tell you I'm not watching a podcast when I drive down the highway. That's a bad idea. So I'm listening to your show in different settings. I do watch video podcasts. So don't confuse me with other people and don't put it down. I know you're going to throw something at me right now. No, put that down. I do watch video podcasts. I really enjoy them. I love seeing my favorite host do their video thing and show up on camera. That's really cool because now I have a visual, and in some cases I prefer video podcasts over audio when I can. But I would tell you that 40 plus hours of my week, you're in my pocket and I can't see what you're showing me on the screen. I'm going to get fired if I watch your video podcast, and I can't watch it in the car. So I love audio podcasts for the sake of companionship, and I love audio podcasts for the sake of not being bound to the screen. And there's some places like Kids Pod, which is an app for children, and its whole premise is screen-free podcasting for children on a children's app, Kids Pod. You can download it today. It's completely free. So it's designed for you or kids to go play, go color or play with their toys and have a podcast for children playing with no visuals, no screens, 0 screen time. But the kids get to listen to amazing children's-based podcasts, commercial-free and no video. Because moms and dads want their kids to get away from their tablets and their screen time. for all that's good in the world, please shut that off and go play already. So that's designed for that reason on purpose. So there's a need for audio. There's an insatiable desire for video right now in podcasting. And right there, we begin to understand and start unpacking that podcasting requires some form of definition. Not a definition that excludes people or excludes creators, but a definition of, okay, somebody comes to me and says, Dave, I want to know how many listeners you have for your show. I'd love to be a sponsor for your podcast. Could happen to you. You need to be able to come up with a number. And that number could include audio, video, social media, a newsletter, a blog, a Substack. All of these things combined together become your audience, adjacent to what you do on a microphone or a video camera, right? All of these things are your community. The podcast is one big chunk of that. But you also have these other things that you can put in front of somebody who's interested in sponsoring your show. They want that number, not just the one thing. There's also the thing about podcasting is how it's measured. Like, what is a listen? What is a view? What is a impression? These are all things that are different on the different players. So it could be 1 minute of playable time, could count as a listen. There's really no definition to date for YouTube on what justifies a view on YouTube. It could be really small, like seconds, and that would count. So how do you marry up a second of playable time on YouTube with a minute on an audio podcast? Right there, you've got apples and oranges. So how do you put those two numbers together and make those numbers make sense? So there's a lot of things going on for us as podcasters that we have to juggle to come up with some kind of definition to somebody who is coming to podcasting as a new participant, listener, viewer. They're coming here for the first time. They really don't care about the definition of a podcast, just so you know. The people who come here for the content, they come here for you and your show, they don't care about all the mechanics behind the scenes. But there is a point now where we need to come up with some clear identifying reason or rationale around the definition of a podcast. So that's why I'm doing this episode today. Again, it's not to negate anyone's point of view. It's not to say that my point of view is correct and the only point of view. Remember, there's no rules in podcasting. And where there's no rules, that's where it might get a little bit dicey, because now we don't really know how to quantify exactly what a podcast is. So let's get into this thing and talk a little bit more about this. Again, you're going to hear a lot of Dave opinion in this, but I hope that I balance it out in a way that you don't feel like you're being judged because you might see it differently than I do. And I totally welcome anybody to reach out and give me their point of view. Come on the show and let's have a conversation about it. Especially if you see it differently than I do. I welcome that. This is a conversation, everyone. This isn't a diatribe about what Dave thinks. And you should think how Dave thinks because, well, you probably benefit by not thinking exactly the way I think. So that's how this all works. It's a conversation. Let's get into it a little bit more. So what is and what isn't a podcast? Why definitions matter. The evolving definition of a podcast. Traditionally, a podcast has been designed as an episodic series of audio and video, by the way, that has been distributed through an RSS feed. Super nerdy, really simple syndication is what RSS stands for. It's basically kind of like a library where you give your information, your podcast, to a host, and a host distributes it to all the different players. Yes, it does include video. From like back in the early days of podcasting, 20 plus years ago, there was a way to have video, and it's still available today, to go out as an audio file, as a video file. It works, and it's been working for a long time. Some players will let you watch video, some don't. Some hosts will allow you to upload video, some won't. but video and audio have been available through an RSS feed for a long, long time. And the beautiful thing about an RSS feed, really simple syndication, is that you as a host, the creator of a podcast, video or audio, you give your file, the finished episode, all done, you give it to your host, one person, one place, and they distribute it to many. And when they distribute to many, what comes back to you is all the information, the stats, the listens, the country of origin where people are listening, all that stuff comes back to you from one source. So you have one kind of dashboard that shows you everything based on the playable history of that episode, video and audio. So that's what a host does through a really simple syndication RSS feed. This RSS feed allows listeners to subscribe and receive their new episodes automatically. So for me, I'm on Spotify. That's where I listen because I listen to music and podcasts. I go back and forth. So I like one place, one home. That's where I go. And I listen on there. So every time I subscribe to your show and I follow your show, that's really important. You hear a lot of people saying that at the end of their podcast. Oh, by the way, while you're listening to this, make sure you subscribe and follow whatever you're listening to this on right now. You're doing this, you're listening to the podcast, so you already know how to do this because you're here. So where there's at the top of the screen, there'll be like a follow button or a subscribe or something. It'll say something. It'll change in the future. But hit that button because what happens every time I do a new episode, I don't have to go to Instagram and say, hey, everybody, guess what? Dave's got a new episode. Woo! And we all celebrate. No, it'll automatically go into a folder for you and wait for you to come and press play on it in the future. It's just like a place where like a file. Everything goes into the one file folder and it just waits for you. So that's how I listen to your shows. So this RSS feed distributes your podcast out to your followers and to the world and does it one click, one upload, and you're done. That's the beautiful thing about it. It works really well. The definition has shifted dramatically, though, in the recent years. Today, podcasts can be audio or video. And they can be distributed on platforms like YouTube. There's video on Spotify. Even TikTok is now considered to some degree a podcast, often without any connection to an RSS feed. For many, a podcast now simply means anything on demand created by a creator, a content creator, and it totally does not matter on what platform it is. The user is now defining a podcast, where it used to be podcasters defined what a podcast was. The users are now defining what a podcast is to the actual point where people will watch a clip of your podcast on TikTok or Instagram or Facebook or YouTube. They'll watch like a 10-second clip of one of your episodes, one of those little highlighted moments, and go, yeah, I listened to your show. Cool. What'd you think? They're great. I love these little 10-second clips. They're awesome. Wait, you haven't listened to the entirety? That's just a piece of it. No, that's it. I like the clips. I like the 10 seconds. It's a 45-minute podcast. It's a 3-hour conversation, and you like 10 seconds of it. My question to you, does that matter to you? That's somebody who found your content, and that's somebody who enjoys it. Their definition of a podcast is 10-second chunks. Does that matter? Is that a community member for you? Or is that a lurker? Is that somebody on the outside looking in? Or is that somebody in your community who loves 10-second chunks? The question is posed to you to answer. Who's driving this change around podcasting? A lot of it's being driven by advertisers, marketers, a lot of major platforms. They're playing a significant role in this redefinition of podcasting and clarification of what a podcast is. As podcasting has become big business with some of the large shows with a huge amount of listeners, these stakeholders are looking for clear, measurable definitions to get a better idea of the target audience and track who's listening so they can place ads in your show and get the benefit of knowing what's happening. It's interesting because podcasting has better statistics than radio. YouTube has probably got us beat on the ultimate as far as statistics in general. But podcasting has some great analytics and some great information coming back because it's tied to people's phones. It's tied to people's accounts on those phones. And when people sign up for those accounts and credit cards and whatever, all that information is kind of compiled. It gives a really rich data back to us as podcasters about who's out there because we really don't know when we first start. Platforms like YouTube, now the top podcasting listening platform, as they like to claim, have reshaped the medium by prioritizing video and offering more advanced monetization tools for creators when you reach the thresholds. And this has led for a surge in video podcasting that has blurred the lines between traditional audio podcasts and video first podcasting. But remember, again, that video podcasting has been around for a long, long time. And it's been available on Apple and other places where you can actually watch the video podcast outside of YouTube. So that still exists today. Why does all this matter, and to whom does this matter? For creators, audience targeting and monetization, understanding where and how our listeners consume our content is really crucial for us as creators. Advertisers may expect both audio and video versions of your show, and creators are learning to adapt their strategies accordingly. Our content strategy is important for us as creators as well, as this evolving definition of podcasting means that creators can experiment with formats. But we as creators, we still need to maintain a balance as far as how we show up on the mic or on camera and what our audience expects of us as podcasters. There's also a community building side of all this for us as creators. Social media integration is now essential for distribution, discovery, and building loyal communities around our podcast. There's an opportunity to build communities in multiple places, and sometimes there's different people in different places. You'll have a community on Substack who may or may not even listen to your podcast. You'll have a community on YouTube who never goes to your audio. You have an audio community that never goes to video. You see, there's a lot of different communities that you're building in all of this. I don't mean this to be overwhelming, but you might be missing out on an opportunity where you're not there. Now, does that matter when you first start? No, I would tell just start with what you're comfortable with. Do what you can with what you have, where you are. It's kind of our slogan here, I guess. And for podcasting, that's what I would say. If you're comfortable with audio, great. If you're a video person and that's what you do day in and day out, to go to audio only might not work for you. Video, you have everything. You got all these, you're set up, you're good to go. Then video might be your perfect starting point. Or you might want a mix of the two. Either way, there's an audience, a potential audience for you in all these different places, and how you want to reach them and when you want to start reaching out to them, it's completely up to you. Start where you feel comfortable. Do what you can with what you have, where you are. For listeners, the definition of a podcast, like why does it matter to them? It's all around discovery, finding new shows, and how they consume. Listeners benefit from more choices and more formats. Again, not everybody is an audio person. Not everybody's a video person. Some people don't want either. They just want to read. So having a variety of choices benefits the audience, which then benefits you because you're reaching more people. But sometimes they get confused about what a podcast really means, especially when we don't know what it means. And as video and social media become more dominant, there's a push and a pull towards having the audience find you. And if we don't know what it is, it's hard to define where to find it. And that makes confusion, and that might keep people out of listening or being a part of podcasting as a consumer. So we need to have some clarity around what a podcast is. And the community engagement side of this and why it matters for a listener, social media and live podcasting allows for direct interaction with a community, making podcasts more participatory. There's a nice word. Dave's like pulling words out of his ear. Yeah, participatory in that people can actually interact with the host. So there is a couple live podcasts that I have watched when I'm available to watch them. And I really enjoy them because it's like live, it's unedited in the moment. There's a lot of laughter and goofing around, and things break, and you see people for who they really are, not the polished, cleaned up, edited version that we get through audio or a posted YouTube video. Live is a totally different beast. I don't know if I'm ever going to do it. It's a lot of buttons to push at the same time, and I don't know. But if you love live, you know what I'm talking about. And why does this all matter to the industry, the podcasting industry? It all goes back again to measurement and analytics, the move away or the devaluing of this single upload through an RSS feed to more of a platform-specific distribution can complicate stats and analytics, making it harder to get an unfiltered and more unified picture of listenership. What's happening now, because some people are not leveraging the RSS feed to its fullest, they're uploading directly to these platforms every time, one at a time. So I can have a video on Spotify, but I have to manually upload a single video file one at a time to Spotify. And then it'll play on Spotify as a video. I can also then want my video podcast on YouTube. I again have to go to YouTube and do the same process for YouTube. So I don't get the benefit of one upload through a host to everywhere, because these different platforms now require you to do it one-on-one relationship. So there, we've broken that. And because I'm doing it one-on-one, I have my own stat for that file that does not go back to my host, to my dashboard, where I see everything in one place. I have to go to all these separate places now and compile all these numbers and bring them back to one location so that I can answer the question, Dave, how many people saw my episode last week? Well, give me 5 hours and I'll go do all the work and I'll let you know. See what I'm saying? So when we walk away from a single upload to a podcast host distributed to all the different platforms through an RSS feed, we now have gained more work in reviewing our numbers and giving accurate information to our audience, to our sponsors, to our ego. We have to compile all this stuff. It's no longer a one-click upload and a one-click review of who's interacting with our show. See what I'm saying? So now that causes some pressure points for podcasting, because we can't answer the question in easy, simple terms, because there's a lot of things going on behind the scenes now that we as podcasters have to navigate. If you don't even know about this stuff, it's even more intimidating. And you're a podcaster. Imagine what it's like for the viewer and the listener. The other side for the podcast industry and why it matters to the industry of podcasting is the whole thing about having an open ecosystem in podcasting versus a closed ecosystem. The rise of walled gardens, you're going to hear that talked about a lot in podcasting, which is platform exclusive content where you can only be found on YouTube. You can only be found on Apple. People who don't want to be on Spotify. People who only want to be on Spotify. You see what I'm saying? It's no longer available everywhere. So at the end of your episode where you're saying goodbye and you're leaving your episode and we're done, you're like, find me wherever you find podcasts. Well, what if my definition of a podcast is 10 seconds on TikTok? If you're truly going to say, find me wherever you find podcasts, then you're going to need 10-second clips on TikTok. Find me on wherever you find podcasts might mean Substack in a written form. That's how I find podcasts. You're not on Substack. So I can't find you wherever I find podcasts. We might need to rethink that statement if we don't embrace where our audience might be. We might need to be a little more specific. If you're only on Spotify, if you're only on YouTube, you might want to say, find me here on Spotify, find me here on YouTube, and you have now stepped outside of the traditional RSS feed, and you're only on a certain platform to to a certain audience, excluding the potential to reach more people had you been available everywhere. See what I'm saying? We're battling against this whole thing about being only on one platform, negating the opportunity to leverage our content to get in front of more people. So if you say, find me wherever you find podcasts, do you even know where people find podcasts? And do you even know what a podcast is? So that you can actually make that statement. Because you might be misleading your audience or disappointing them because you don't fit their definition of what a podcast is. So you might want to rethink saying, find me wherever you find podcasts. Just a thought. So this whole conversation about what a podcast is, why does this hurt the podcast industry? Why does it have an impact on what we do as podcasters? There's some potential downsides. There's also some potential upsides to this whole conversation about what is a podcast and who does this matter to. The downsides, the potential downsides, a watering down of the entire podcast medium. As everything becomes labeled a podcast, the term kind of loses some specificity in that we used to know it was this one thing. And we all kind of agreed, that it's all this kind of one thing. And as everything becomes labeled a podcast, remember, everything becomes labeled a car, even though it's a Ford F-150 pickup truck, which I have one. Everything becomes a car, then it's confusing when you go to buy a car and you mean a pickup truck, an SUV, a minivan for the kids. Everything's a car? No, everything's not a car. There are different types of vehicles, but we call them all cars. And when we call everything a podcast, then, like I said, in the last point here was find me wherever you find podcasts. There's a broad spectrum of what a podcast is now. And you might not be connecting in the right ways with the right audience at the right time because it's so broad. This can really confuse an audience and dilute what made podcasting unique and fun and engaging. Podcasting has always been open. It's always been available to everyone. There's nobody who could tell you no, and you can talk about whatever you want. And through your RSS feed in traditional podcasting back in the day, nobody could shut you down. Nobody owned your podcast. You owned your podcast. So there was freedom in that. And nobody could take that away from you. When you work directly with a one-on-one relationship with a host, or like a platform like Spotify or YouTube or Apple, you can break their terms of service and they will remove you. Like you're gone. And sometimes with no reason. They don't have to give a reason because you didn't read the fine print and you said something, did something, or whatever. You're done. So keep that in mind. When you have a single relationship with one place and you're only on that one place, you are susceptible putting yourself out there that you could be removed for something that you did, said, whatever. Just keep that in mind. An RSS feed was designed to be everywhere, and nobody could take it away from you. See what we're fighting against and we're trying to combat here? When the shift towards closed platforms like YouTube and Spotify exclusives risk undermining the open RSS ecosystem, potentially limiting our creators' freedom and the access for our audience to find you. And like we said earlier, your analytics are all messed up now, with content spread across multiple platforms, requiring logins on here and exit here and go over here and log in here and get that number and exit out of there and go over there and get that number. And then I have my hosting site. They give me these numbers, and then have YouTube over here. I kind of mash them all up. Who's got time for that? I don't have time for that. So our analytics are all over the place, and they don't match up. What is accounted as a listen or an engagement over here is the complete opposite over there. And these two numbers don't match, but we try to mash them together and go, I think this is how many people listen to my show. I think this is how many people watch my video. And I think this is how long they were here when they were listening or watching. And we don't really know. Because again, it's not a single upload through one place to everywhere, coming back to us with information that we were using traditionally in the past. So we're kind of balancing all of these mixed things. And it's up to us to make it all make sense. And who's got time for that? We don't want to be all like Dave Downer here. So let's go the other side. What are some potential upsides of the podcast industry grappling with the definition of a podcast? There's actually a bonus to all of this, is the fact that with all these different platforms, video and social media integrations have brought new audiences into podcasting that would probably have never been here, ever. Like they would never show up for a traditional audio podcast. It's like, and some people would compare audio podcasting to like AM radio, you know, the channel, the selection in your car that you never use. Yeah. Some people think that all talk podcasting is like talk radio, which your dad or grandfather will listen to and make you listen to as a kid. You're like, can we just listen to some music? Oh my gosh. Right. So there are people coming into podcasting as community members and audience, potential listeners and viewers of your show that would not even be here had it not been for this kind of stretching and redefining of podcasts. So that I love, that I celebrate, because then more people will be able to interact with you, your content. You can reach more people, help more people, encourage more people, celebrate other voices and other approaches. It's a good thing. That's an upside. I like that. Also, innovation and growth, new formats, interactive features, cross-media extensions like live podcasts, TV adaptations of podcasts, merchandise, engagement places, communities like Substack and all these other places allow for us to reach a broader audience than we ever could have with a single solitary definition of what a podcast is. And more empowerment for you as a creator, more tools, more options to make money with your show if that's something you want to do, ways to connect with your audiences and to empower creators to keep creating. There are creators here today in podcasting as a wide definition that would not be here had it not been for this adaptation of the podcasting definition. So it has some upsides, everybody. It's not all downsides. So my question is, are there more new creators coming to podcasting, or is video a gatekeeper keeping people out of podcasting? I'm not doing video. I don't want to be on camera. So if I have to do that, I'm not going to make a podcast. The good news, new creators are showing up under this big banner of podcasting. The podcast audience continues to grow, and more creators are entering the space thanks to easier tools, social media, the less of an importance on equipment, and more about content. All of these things are making it easier and easier for people to get into podcasting. That's amazing. Video is both an opportunity and a barrier. It's both an opportunity and a barrier. While video podcasts attract new demographics and new community members and new opportunities, it does offer some creative possibilities for podcasters. It also raises the bar on how we produce a podcast. Some aspiring podcasters may feel intimidated by the expectation to produce video. They have to. Again, remember, have to is not something that makes podcasting available to all. It makes podcasting available to some whenever you have the words have to. Remember that. Some podcasters want to come into podcasting and create a show, but the feeling that they have to do video is the thing that keeps them from starting. it can become a gatekeeper. And traditionally, podcasting was never gate kept. There was really nobody who could keep you from starting a show. I cannot go create a radio channel. I'm being kept out of that because I don't have the money, the tower, and all the expertise and the finances to create a radio channel. Dave Radio, everyone. I can't do that on my own on my home computer and just set it up. I got licensing and I got all these expenses to create a radio show. I can create a podcast in 25 minutes and be on Apple. Like seriously, you can create it that easily. So video can be a barrier for some if they don't feel like they have the tech skills, the resources, the money. They don't have a camera, they don't have a background. They don't feel comfortable on camera. Does that make video bad? No. But for some people, it just means that they're not comfortable with it. And it might not work in all cases. Go back to the Kids Pod app, a screen-free app for children to interact with children podcasts. So it's in their whole premise of what they do. They're not a screen-friendly app. They want their kids to not be looking at the screen and go play and still be able to benefit while they fall asleep listening to a podcast. And some kids will listen to the same episode every night for the rest of their childhood because they love that story. They're not watching the screen. They're falling asleep listening to a podcast. So for all the people who are pro video, remember there's space for audio. For all you audio people, remember there's space for video. It goes both ways, everybody. We can't just have it one way and not the other way. It needs a balanced approach to the definition of what a podcast is. As well, niche audio communities are still thriving. Despite the surge in video, audio-only podcasts still remain popular for all of the reasons we talked about earlier. You're in my pocket while I'm at work. I'm going to get fired if I watch your video. There's a downside to watching a video podcast at work. Your boss is going to hate it. So don't do that. And listen, I don't want to watch your video while I'm driving down the highway. I could end up in a lot of trouble or hurt somebody because I'm not focused on the task of driving because I want to watch you do your video podcast. There's room for audio. There's room for video. And you need to make the choice that's right for you. Do what you can with what you have where you are. The future of podcasting is, ready? Wait for it. Flexible. Oh, wait. The future of podcasting is flexible. Dave's opinion warning, just so you know. All right? Okay, we're still friends. Okay. The definition of a podcast is no longer a fixed, permanent, written in stone definition. It's not. It's also not a grave marker for the death of podcasting. It's not a gravestone. Podcasting is shaped by its creators, shaped by the audiences that press play. It's shaped by the platforms that allow us to do what we do. While the expansion into video and social media brings both opportunities and challenges for us as podcasters, the heart of podcasting, independent, on-demand, storytelling, interviews, interaction, creator-driven content remains strong. It's not going anywhere. For creators, the key is to stay adaptable. Focus on the quality of your show and build genuine connections with your audience, regardless of how the podcasting format changes into the future or has changed from when it started to today. Podcasting and the future of podcasting is flexible. When I went with my kids, we would take them when they were little, we'd go dirt bike riding. We would go to a place. They would teach us how to ride these brand new bikes. And we would all have different sizes because my kids were little. And then my wife and I, all 5 of us would go. And one of the things they would do is they did a safety meeting with us. We would practice and we'd have instructors in the morning, and then after lunch in the afternoon, we'd go ride the trails. So much fun. It's just such a great family activity. And all of my kids and my wife and I went. It was so much fun. But one of the things they did, I remember, is the instructor had 2 pieces of like a branch, two different branches. One was old and dry, and one was just like taken off the tree in that moment. And the instructor looked at my wife and I and my kids and went, "So I want you to understand something before we go out into the on the trails. These are both branches," and he held up both, one in each hand. He said, one is dry and one is a fresh tree branch. The fresh tree branch, I can bend it. It's got flexibility. We're good. This dried up, and I felt really old in the moment, this dried up branch is, and he grabbed it and he bent it slightly and snap, it broke right in half, really abruptly. No flexibility. He said, this branch is not flexible and it breaks easy. He said, for our older people here, without pointing at us directly, he said, this is more like your bones. A little bit dry and not as flexible and can break easily. And then he said to the kids, you're young, your bones are a little more flexible, you'll be fine. He said, to the older people here, just be careful because you're not as flexible and your bones aren't as easy to bend as possible as you age. So keep it in mind, the more flexible your bones are, the less likely you're going to break something. So please be careful when you're riding through the bush. Don't fall off your bike. It was just trying to give us a nice little warning, right? As podcasters, I'm going to bring out that same example to you. If your definition of podcast is strict, has no flexibility, it could easily break. I think as podcasters, we need that fresh branch off the tree that you can turn around, you can wrap it around, you can tie a knot in this branch. It's got a lot of flexibility. It's got life. And I think the definition of a podcast needs to have life. It needs to be fresh. And it needs updating. It does. Just like your house needs a new coat of paint. Reminder, Dave, go paint upstairs. Our house needs more updates. It needs to be refreshed. It needs work. And podcasting, the definition, needs to stay flexible. It still needs to be defined, but it needs to have some flexibility to it so that it can grow. A dead branch on the ground is not growing. It's going to dry up and disintegrate. A tree branch attached to a tree, being fed and giving nutrients and growing, is flexible. It can bend in the wind. It's got life. Podcast, the definition, needs to have life. So your definition of podcasting, is it fixed? Is it staunch? Is it unflexible? Or is it flexible and able to bend with the changes coming from 2025 and beyond? This is why we need to define podcasting, so that we all can agree to some degree on what a podcast is. And I'd love to hear what your definition of a podcast is and how it is focused on your audience and less focused on the technology and how it's delivered. It's more focused on the listener and the viewer and how they interact with you. There's the sweet spot on defining what a podcast is, so that we can serve a person on Substack who thinks they're interacting with a podcast, a 10-second clip on TikTok where people think that's a podcast, a 3-hour episode in audio, which is a podcast, a video on YouTube or Spotify or wherever is a podcast. They're all under the umbrella of one definition. And the sooner we come to distinguish and decide on what this is, and all hold hands and say, enough fighting, and let's move forward with making great content, the better. I'd love to hear your thoughts. agree, disagree, counter thing? What do you got? howtopodcast.ca. Let me know. Thanks for listening. Hey, thanks for listening to the podcast all the way through to the end. I love having these great guest co-hosts on the show to share their podcast with you. You have some homework to do. And what I'm asking of you is to go check out our featured guest co-host today. Go over and listen to their podcasts. The links are always in the show notes. And I'd love for you to go and give them your love and support. And I think if we can all do that for each other, podcasting will be a lot more fun for all of us. So it's time to do what you've asked others to do for you. It's time to do for this guest co-host. Links in the show notes. Go over and check out their show and leave them a review, do the follow, go listen to their episodes in full, the entirety of an episode, which again shows to the apps that it's a good podcast because you're going there and you're staying to the end. It's probably one of the best ways you can help a podcaster grow their audience and be shown to more people is by simply going and listening wherever you listen to the very end, like you're doing right now here. This is the perfect way to signal to wherever you're listening on, this is a podcast worth promoting. And all of the apps want you to stay on as long as possible. So go over and listen to our guest co-host episode and leave them some feedback. If they have a buy me a coffee, send them a coffee. If they have a speak pipe, send them a voice message. If they have an email, send them an email. If they're on Instagram, send them a direct message. Do something to support our guest co-hosts. They've given up their time to be here with you, to be here with me, and we can give that back to them with time and attention, our love, our support. Thank you for doing all that for me as well. Here on the How to Podcast series, we'll talk to you soon for our next episode.